Welcome to Soccer in 60, presented by the Empire Strikers. Get ready for your weekly look at all the pro soccer teams in Greater Los Angeles. We've got all the news and analysis you need, from LAFC and the LA Galaxy to the Empire Strikers, Angel City FC, and Orange County Soccer Club. Now, buckle up and enjoy Soccer in 60. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Soccer in 60, your weekly look at all the major pro soccer teams in the greater Los Angeles area. Speaking of Los Angeles, pray for LA. Hope you all made it out of this crazy apocalyptic Santa Ana wind insanity. I lost power Tuesday night, but there are others out there that lost far more, and my heart goes out to each and every one of you. Shout out to all the firefighters and the first responders that are out there combating this insanity. And if you're listening to the show, I really hope this pod serves as a reprieve from all the craziness that we have experienced. Our heart goes out to you. And with that being said, if you're tuning in, allow myself to reintroduce myself. My name is Christian Philemon, otherwise known as Philly, but my mother, well, she called me Christian. My father gave me the last name Philemon. That's me. And joining me, the Mountie of Orange County, Tim Kolotz. Tim, how you doing, buddy? How you holding up?
Philly, it's good to be with you today. It is a tough day here in LA. I'm doing okay. Again, our hearts go out to everybody here in LA, talking about losing things like the Hollywood Bowl and Yamashiro's. These things are not easy to listen to hear about. So hopefully we can give you, like you said, a reprieve for an hour, clear your head, and have a little bit of soccer footy talk today.
Absolutely. And if you want to get involved and you want to donate, there is a way to do it. If you go to support LAFD.org, obviously we have to let the firefighters and the first responders handle business, but this is our way of helping donate funds to help the families that lost everything. Just crazy. I mean, never in my life have I experienced anything like this, not from the winters of the Northeast or the few tornadoes I encountered going to college at Indiana University, Tim. It was wild. I thought for a second I was going to join the Lollipop Guild in Oz last night, but thankfully we didn't encounter that. But the people in Altadena, Malibu, Santa Monica, now the Hollywood Hills and other spots in Los Angeles, my heart, man. Yeah, my heart goes out to you.
Yeah, it's tough. We're having a hard time doing this podcast, but we're gonna do it for you guys. We're gonna do it for us because we both need it. And again, those 80, 100, 120 mile an hour winds coming down through the hills has been shaking our house pretty good too. So, but let's talk about it. Let's talk some footy and, support those firefighters, but let's talk some soccer.
Yep. Let's pay some bills first too. Let's give a shout out to our sponsor, Omnitrans. You heading to the game? Hop aboard Omnitrans for a seamless journey to Toyota Arena. Simply download the transit app to catch your bus and enjoy a stress-free trip to cheer on the Strikers. And with that being the case, Tim, let's talk about LAFC. Let's have some fun with this. I know we started in a rather morbid fashion, but I'm stressed. You're stressed. Our producers are stressed. Gunnar, Nina, Christian. I'm gutted, but let's talk about some LAFC.
Yeah, let's talk about it. You know, the big thing that's come down over the past few days is Omar Campos has been transferred to Liga MX's side Cruz Azul, according to our friend Tom Bogert. And this is some serious money. This is north of $4 million. And this comes after only one season for Omar in LA, Philly. I mean, he played great, 2,300 minutes across all comps. Is this going to leave a big giant hole in the middle of that field there, Philly, for LAFC?
I don't know if it's going to leave a big giant one. I mean, he started off really shaky in the beginning of the season, but eventually he grew into becoming a dependable defender. I mean, he played across all competitions, 38 matches, scored a goal during the U.S. Open Cup, notched up 2 assists. But he came to LAFC for right around $5 million. So if they're selling him for around $4 million, I mean, that sounds, I'm not a math major or a genius here, but from the sounds of things, sounds like they're taking a loss on this, but it's something that both parties agreed to. He's familiar with Liga MX, having played over at Santos Laguna, but his departure on a bright note, not only does LAFC get $4 million, this also opens up a U22 slot. So that's going to be important for LAFC trying to go young.
Yeah, that'll definitely help. And now that Hollingshead, the player, not the deli, is probably going to be the number one left back, right? I mean, it does open up some space for guys like Hollingshead for 20, under 22 spot for some younger guys to come in, and LAFC does need some of those younger guys, Philly.
That they do. LAFC has gone young throughout the duration of their history, and it's proven to be quite successful. Look, we only have 2 incoming players that are officially on LAFC: Jeremy Abobasi and then Jude Terry, who just signed on to the big club, 16. A lot of outgoing players. But we had earlier on, we did a pre-record with a journalist that's an institution in Southern California and the Inland Empire. He goes by the name Dennis Pope. I was fortunate enough to have met him in the LAFC press conferences doing the U.S. Open Cup. So let's go to that pre-recording real quick. Dennis has a lot of great, insightful things to say, and then we'll come back to wrap up the LAFC banter, the Galaxy, Angel City, Empire Strikers, Orange County, and so forth. So let's go to that Dennis Pope interview. Our guest today is an institution of sports journalism in the Inland Empire, having been with the Southern California News Group since 2001. His work has been published in a number of newspapers and other publications, including the Press Enterprise, the Orange County Register, the Daily Bulletin, the LA Daily News, and the Long Beach Press Telegram. He is also the vice president of the Southwest Premier League and a Riverside Sports Hall of Fame board member. What makes this exceptionally exciting is the fact that he is an expert on the 4 of the 5 teams that we covered. It is such a pleasure and an honor to have with us today Mr. Dennis Pope. Dennis, welcome to Soccer in 60.
Man, that's an awesome introduction, Philly. Tim, appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. I just say we get right into it. We all need a little reprieve from the insanity that's currently surrounding Los Angeles. So let's have some fun and talk about some stuff that we love. Let's start off with something you and I know a bit about, having seen each other in the press conferences at LAFC. Now, LAFC had a number of departures this offseason with Ilie Sanchez, Jesus David Murillo, Kai Kamara, Edward Atuesta, all gone. And now Omar Campos, too, according to Tom Bogert, going to Cruz Azul. Meanwhile, Lewis O'Brien has still not re-signed, and we're not really hearing much in terms of additions, aside from the chatter about a potential loan deal from Celtic for midfielder Odin Thiago Holmes. Are you at all worried about the current LAFC roster, and what do you see as LAFC's most pressing needs?
I think right now, no, I'm not worried about the way that they've been doing business. They've shown a history of being able to do business late in the window. So I don't think this is anything that's alarming. I do like that they're able to do business internationally, send players internationally, and not just send them around MLS. I think sending Campos to Cruz Azul, as Tom Bogert has reported, is a fantastic move, and it really shows that connection between MLS clubs and Liga MX clubs and their willingness to do business with one another. The signing of Ibabase, right, shows they can go out and find proven goal scorers, and that they've never really suffered for lack of goals. So I don't know if right now there is a pressing need. They might need some help in midfield. They might need a player or two to shore up defense. But I think LAFC right now is still in decent position, and they got matches coming up still. And it looks like they do more to reload than restock or rebuild. I'm not at all worried about where LAFC is. And in fact, I think probably they think they're working from a position of strength, being able to make these moves and being able to do transactions and send players. MLS essentially should be a seller's league still at this point. So the fact that they're able to develop these players even for a couple of years and being able to move them and potentially make profit just means good things for the club.
John Thorrington is like the great and powerful Oz. He works in secrecy with his clandestine approach. I would agree with your thoughts. I'm not too worried about it either. But I want to bring something up. You mentioned Jeremy Abobasi. There's been some debate over him. He didn't have a great season with San Jose, but then again, San Jose didn't have a great season at all. He made significantly, or will make significantly more money than Kai Kamara was making with LAFC. You think getting Abobasi, though, was a smart move? And how do you feel his addition impacts the role of, say, Olivier Giroud?
Well, Giroud's going to need a backup, right? He can't play a full slate of matches. I don't want to mention his age on air. I don't think that's fair to him. But they are going to need, proven goal scorers behind him. Ibobase has scored 50 or 60 goals now in MLS.
60, yeah.
Yeah, 60 goals, and he's still very young, comparatively speaking. I think this is smart money right now on him. You're exactly right about Earthquakes having a terrible season last year. There's not a whole lot he could have done to salvage what was just a miserable campaign for them. So I think, again, signing him shows that they can still go out and find goals pretty easily. I think he's going to score double-digit goals for them this year in 25.
I think I speak for myself, being an LAFC supporter and a media guy, in the sense that it's going to be great to see him being a part of LAFC rather than scoring goals against LAFC. There's something about the LA teams that sparked something within Jeremy Ebobisse. As far as the Earthquakes are concerned, it would have taken an act of God to save their season. But speaking of God, somebody who might have a statue in their future down the road for LAFC, maybe not tomorrow, but down the road, let's bring up Charlie Candle, the very first designated player himself, Carlos Vela. What's your sense on the Vela situation? Do you think he'll be back for 2025?
We're going to see him play some matches. How many and how many goals does he score is a real question. He'll do his best, I think, to try and come back, and they'll make a big deal, the club will, about his reemergence for however long. But, age affects it all, and he's fighting an uphill battle just to come back to match fitness. It's going to be a tough season to see him play double-digit matches. I think to try and get him in some key matches would be important. To have his presence, certainly in those matches and on the field in the big matches, means a lot to the club. He is very much a club legend at this point. And so to have him on the field in the 11 and be able to promote that and bring that energy to these matches for the club and their supporters will mean a lot. How much he's able to contribute, though, will be the real question. He'll be able to poach a goal or two. I think he'll finally find his way into a score sheet a couple of times at least coming up this season, as long as he's able to get on the field. But, I think his days as an MVP candidate are behind him.
Yeah, that's some great insight, Dennis. We appreciate that. Let's go down the street to the Galaxy. The Galaxy are going to keep much of the core of the MLS Cup winning roster in place, but there are certainly a few areas of concerns. Chief among them is the injury to Ricky Puig. Sorry, and the return of Maya Yoshida seemingly increasingly unlikely. The state of the Galaxy roster, and what do you think their most pressing need is?
There's going to be a hangover, no doubt about it, for this club off this championship. The race to SACE, as they've been calling it now for a decade, it was finally won, and I think there's going to be a price to pay in 25 for that. How long Ricky is out, right, will be the storyline of the early half of this season, no doubt about it. I think he's going to probably not be ready for the beginning of the season. I don't know the full extent of this timeline at the moment, but they will need reinforcements in midfield, and they just lost Jalen Neal in defense, who is their best young up-and-coming center defender, the guy who you would thought maybe would replace the captain at some point. He's now gone to Montreal in a cost-saving move, I think, and so that leaves a hole to be filled there in central defense. I actually happen to know the agent for Yamane, and he's very happy to be with the Galaxy, their root defender. And so expect him to return. He was a great presence for them this year. But yeah, Galaxy is going to need help middle forward, and it's going to be a difficult beginning to this title defense for them without that motor in midfield that was Ricky. I mean, he was connecting league high pass numbers, league high touch numbers. You can't just replace that overnight. And so there'll be a different team to start this season for sure.
So with the Ricky Puig injury, and I'm sure Galaxy fans would love to have Marco Reus to step up and shoulder some of that attacking burden, right, with Ricky's absence. However, some Borussia Dortmund fans are already looking at Reus's stint with the Galaxy so far as a microcosm of his injury-riddled career in Germany. Do you think there's a version of this where people will look back at Reus's time in MLS as a disappointment, or does he take it on his shoulders in Ricky's absence?
That's a great question. The Galaxy have a history, right, at this point of bringing in these aged European stars, and Some have worked out, some haven't. I think the book is still out on Marco Reus. He didn't contribute a ton last season. He was a big face and a big addition promotionally for the club, but did he, really have a significant impact in significant moments on the field for them? Maybe once or twice. He'll have to, come good this season. I don't know if he's in any way, shape, or form ready to return to form to the golden age of, the 2010, 2012 version. And, we're a long way from that now at this point. So I think the expectations are, he's a big name. He can draw a certain cachet back to the club for a certain period of time that's determined by his health. That'll be up to, his trainers and the club and him to determine. But for him to be expected to play a key role, I think is probably too much to expect. I think he needs to be a contributing piece, a guy you can bring up off the bench, because that's where he was best this season, is coming in as a super sub in the 65th or 70th minute and providing a spark late with his skill and his class that never goes away. But for 20 minutes, he can't do that for 90, and nobody should really expect him to.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned, the 20-25 minute guy, that super sub, right? Let's talk about the coach for a minute. Head coach Greg Vanney finally accomplished in 24 what he was never able to do as a Galaxy player, which is win an MLS Cup. Well, it's hard to argue with the championship, right? Some argue that Vanney struggled mightily with the significantly weaker roster in years past. And the main difference this time around was the quality of players that he had at his disposal. How do you rate Greg Vanney as a Galaxy coach?
He got the job done. He did what he was brought in to do. And so I think full marks, right, for that. Other than that, you're nitpicking, right, at the talent
right.
At the talent that he was given. And certainly he went about acquiring a great deal of that and hand selecting that, but that should be to his credit, not to his detriment. He put the championship team together in a lot of respects. And so I think 9 out of 10, right? Because if you get them 10 out of 10, there's room to improve it all. So I think 9 out of 10 for Greg Vanney at this point. He's a head coach in a league with, a lot of financial restraints, and he managed to win a championship. The same criticism could be levying on Pep, right? He's given the best roster with the most amount of money. He's expected to succeed. I think those expectations were on Vanney this year in different respects, right? Because they're totally different leagues and totally different scenarios. But he was given a very, very nice roster that made some very nice additions and every opportunity to win a championship, and he got the job done. So for me, 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10, maybe. He could have beaten LAFC maybe once or twice more during the regular season.
Philly's shaking his head no at you, Dennis. Shaking his head hard.
Agree to disagree on that part, but yes, Vanney had a great year. I mean, he wins another MLS Cup with another team. He did so in Toronto, winning the treble in 2017. And now he gets to do something that he didn't get to do as a player. So in his world, he finished the job. And speaking of finishing the jobs, MLS is done for a little while. We can kind of hang on to that for a bit. Let's go into something I am beyond passionate about, and that's indoor soccer. Let's move on over to the Empire Strikers. Now, Dennis, under young first-time head coach Anu Obasi, the Strikers this season are playing a very daring style that entails frequent use of the goalkeeper as the sixth attacker. So far, the benefits seem to outweigh the risks. What's your take on his strategy? And do you feel that Obasi is a trailblazer? Or is there a chance that teams could take advantage once they become more accustomed to what Empire tries to do?
I think the last point you made is probably the most important. Teams eventually will smarten up to this move and will make adjustments. But right now, Brandon Gomez is a guy that can score goals. I've seen him do it myself with LA Force in training. He is a magician with his feet. And if there's ever an opportunity to play a system like this, it would be with a goalkeeper like Brandon Gomez. And so I think it is very, very exciting to see when strikers do this, when they try and attempt to move forward and play six going forward like this. It is a dangerous gambit that you are playing, though. You leave so much space in behind. It takes, one good touch and you're beat. And so that makes you rethink this whole scenario. So again, once they start getting beat once or twice, you're not going to see this all season. Certainly not going to see this against San Diego Sockers, against teams that can really make you pay. Right now you're playing against Utica City. They're a young franchise overall. They can be overwhelmed by the moment perhaps, and maybe an extra attacker, is an opportunity to do that. But against seasoned professionals, they're going to see that opening and they're going to beat you. And as a goalkeeper myself, that's just such a risky proposition. You have to be really exceptional with your feet to be able to be a sixth attacker and be confident enough that you can cover that ground behind you, that you make that risk proposition going forward worth it for your team. It's very, very difficult. And I hope for strikers, that they're able to utilize this and capitalize off this and be able to score goals, make it exciting so that the league, can use this as, look what this club is doing. Look what, how exciting that their brand of indoor soccer is, so that they can highlight this. But as a long-term strategy, my coach brain goes, we might be able to get away with this against, some mismatches, but, this isn't a strategy that we can use long-term.
Speaking of scoring goals, let's transition on over to goal scorers. You recently wrote a big feature story about the Empire's efforts to obtain a visa for Mexican forward Genaro Castillo, which have thus been, they've been not successful. If you don't mind, could you share with our audience your understanding of the main issue at play, and how do you feel about a team like the Strikers not being able to bring the freaking reigning MASL MVP?
Yeah, it's an insane situation for strikers that U.S. Customs does not see major arena soccer league as a true professional league in which can move players internationally. And I think that's the real issue, is there's just not enough muscle behind MASL at this point to prove to the government that these players are true professionals worthy of, work visas. They, for lack of putting words in the government's mouth, they just don't take it seriously. And they don't take a lot of soccer transfer market stuff seriously on the whole. MLS is able to get away with it now because of their connections to US soccer and things that they're able to do there. But you've seen over the last few years, even USL championship clubs, this professional second division in this country, have issues obtaining work visas. And so it just becomes more difficult the farther down you in the pyramid, so to speak, you go. And to another part of the problem is MASL's not even considered part of the pyramid. They're very much a pirate league, running their own operation in a world where, there's a much larger indoor soccer culture happening internationally that just doesn't exist here. And so it's a lack of education on the government side, and it's a lack of real marketing muscle so far behind the major arena soccer league to have the government see it as a real professional entity worthy of work visas for its athletes. And so it's a conundrum, it's a problem. It only really became a problem, though, during the previous administration, because at the founding of Ontario Fury in 2014, they had scads of Brazilian players and many international players. And so this is only really a recent problem, again, that's been created over the last 8 to 10 years by the government's approach to immigration, right? And so they've tightened the rules and really taken a harder look at the players and the athletes that are crossing the border. And so Castillo does not fit the profile yet, even though he's last season's MVP and one of the elite players in this league, still just internationally speaking, governmentally speaking, does not fit the profile of someone who is going to receive a work visa. And right now, it seems like the players that do receive work visas have to, one, have played at a we'll call world-class level, i.e. they've played for a very, very recognizable club. So either if you're talking Mexico, Club America, or Chivas Guadalajara, that level, or they've played for their men's national team in their respective country, and they can show that, right? So those two things are sort of like instant um, accreditation medals, so to speak, for players. And unfortunately, Castillo's never really played for his national team. He played for like the U21s and U23s, I think, for Mexico. Never played for the full national team, and has never really played, although he had a stint with, forgive me if I'm mistaking his club, but
Tigres.
he had a Tigres, thank you. Played a handful of games, less than 10, I think, overall at the full men's team level for them. So no real CV as a high level professional player. So these are knocks against him. I don't know exactly what strikers have planned to do. Hopefully, things like these articles shine light and give more perspective to, customs and immigration to provide the context that they need for these players. But, I think they've taken a very, very hard line on a lot of this stuff, and it's going to take, a governmental change on policy, which is way beyond the scope of soccer, right? to to try and bring Castillo, and it's a bummer for him because he's just sort of in this void right now where he only has a couple of opportunities in Mexico to play in this league. One's already kind of been a bridge that he's burned, and so really he only has one at this moment, and it's a difficult spot to be in as a player.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bummer being able to not get him that visa and coming up to play for Strikers. Hey Dennis, before we let you go, let's jump back into the outdoor game and go over to Orange County Soccer Club for our last question for you. Orange County experienced an emotional season in 24 that at one point threatened really to end in disappointment. However, once the club's third head coach took over, the team was able to turn things around pretty much immediately, reach the postseason, and make it past the first round. What's your assessment so far of Coach Danny Stone and what he was able to accomplish?
I like Coach Stone. I think he brings a lot of energy to this group, and this club has proven to be resilient over the years. They've faced a lot of challenges both on and off the field, and they've been able to stick around and do well for themselves and really create a community feel in Irvine for that club, which I think is super important. They've publicly sold shares of their club to keep their future in Irvine, and I think that's important. I think the club does a lot of things the right way. And so, like LAFC, I'm not too worried about their player transactions. I think for the most part they get those right. They do a great job of sending players on to Europe. One of the really, really true bright spots in USL Championship for player movement has been Orange County Soccer Club. And I think Danny Stone understands this. And it's a while it's a professional Division II club, they're very much a developmental club. They're bringing in young players, and they bring in the seasoned veterans to kind of help bolster that roster. But the core group of that team is exceptional young players, and I'm very excited to see Marcus Lee come up through Orange County SC eventually. He's a player that's excelled at UC Irvine the last 2 seasons. He broke through, of course, at Calgary Strikers, and also played against Galaxy in that U.S. Open Cup match and scored against Galaxy in that U.S. Open Cup match. And so he's, to me, that next player coming up through through Orange County SC, who I think is going to be a real bright future for them. But they've produced players the last few years that have been worthy of coming out and watching. And I think that's been a big part of it too. They're doing a great job of drawing great talent and, great crowds. I've been out. I don't know if you guys have been out to Championship Stadium, but, beautiful facility. When the sun goes down, there's no soccer stadium in Southern California like it, and the crowds are into it. And I surprised the heck out of me, to be honest with you, that they could just plant a club in El Toro Air Force Base and the community would go crazy for it, right? But it's happened. And I'm excited when I go to get there, and I love Championship Stadium. I think it's a real bright spot in soccer in Southern California. And I just hope to see the club continue to grow and continue to be able to do its own thing without the interference of, bigger clubs trying to horn in on how cool it is there. Because I think that's, part of their deal is they have a great atmosphere, a great vibe at that stadium, and players love playing there. There's a lot of kids there at that park because there's constantly games all around in that complex. They got 20 some odd soccer fields there. And so there's always tournaments and always kids around. It's just a beautiful environment for soccer. One of the real jewels, again, of Southern California soccer. And I think Danny Stone is primed to take advantage of some of that and make a larger spot on his CV because of his experience at Orange County. Playing in USL Championship is, as a club, a very difficult proposition because of the differences in budgets in that league, and there can be massive talent differences, but it's exciting for me to see them thrive on the heels of OC Blues and all of that stuff that they went through initially to become who they are. And we're talking about ancient history at this point, but they've really transformed into this really cool thing. And now we get to talk about their player transactions, their coach hirings and stuff. It's kind of mind blowing to see where they've come and where they are now. So again, I think Danny Stone's in a great spot to take advantage of a lot of that history and a lot of that what's to come for the club.
I mean, we love Orange County Soccer Club, hence the reason why we cover them, and definitely appreciate that insight. Dennis, you've produced so much incredible content over the past decade or so. While we have you on just for a couple of more minutes, just again, number one, thank you. But number two, for the people that tune into our show, where can they follow you and where can they read about some of your fantastic and marvelous work?
So I am a sports writer for the Southern California Newspaper Group. Most of my work does appear in the Press Enterprise out here in where I live, Riverside, California. But Southern California Newspaper Group is a massive newspaper chain with over 20 different editions throughout Southern California, also part of a much larger chain nationally. That's a lot where my sports writing work does appear, although I do write for U.S. Soccer on their Open Cup coverage. So ussoccer.com/Open Cup, right, is where you'd find my feature articles. I write features about clubs involved in U.S. Open Cup every year. I love U.S. Open Cups, one of my passions. One of the reasons why I still work in soccer. And then additionally, I am vice president of the Southwest Premier League. I am also the communications specialist for NISA Nation, which is the men's full year amateur arm of NISA, the National Independent Soccer Association. So I do a lot of promotional marketing work for those two leagues, as well as the Southwest Premier League, SoCal Premier League, which is the elite men's amateur league in Southern California, as well as all our network of leagues. I am very much the communications person for all of that. So I get to communicate with clubs and leagues across the country. And this weekend, I'm going to Chicago for the United Soccer Coaches Convention and get to do more collaborative communication and building of those relationships with those people that are important in the soccer space.
Awesome. Enjoy your trip to Chicago. I wish I could have gone. I was at the convention in Anaheim, was there in Kansas City. It's good times. Dennis, I know I'll be seeing you at LAFC in particular for those U.S. Open Cup games. So once again, thank you so much for joining us today. Happy New Year. And obviously with all things considered going on in Los Angeles now and obviously the surrounding areas, be safe as well, my friend. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
All right, and with that being the case, a lot of great insight, Tim. I mean, Dennis Pope's been around for a decade. He had a lot of great things to say.
Yeah, he was amazing. The insight that he's got from all the different teams, and that's what you get for covering soccer here in Southern California for so long. And like you said, he is an institution, and he had some really great insight all the way to the indoor with the strikers, what's going on with the Galaxy. I'm pretty impressed with that guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to kind of talk a little bit more about LAFC, the club did announce that they had acquired 2 2025 international roster slots from Nashville SC in exchange for $350,000 in 2025 general allocation money, also known as GAM. And I think as we get closer to the start of Major League Soccer, Tim, we should definitely have an alphabet soup episode of all the nuances that Major League Soccer brings in, from GAM, which is general allocation money, from TAM to target allocation money, to thank you, ma'am, which has absolutely nothing to do with any of those. And of course, discovery rights, because it's the simplest way to say, I got dibs on this guy, I got dibs on that guy. So the story is there. Couple more seconds just to talk about LAFC. I do want to say the new kit was leaked, and it's got a collar. And I hate to be so blunt and bold, but to say I think it's gross. I do not like polos. From what I've seen, I do not like this collar. And this will probably be an LAFC kit that I will stay the hell away from, in particular because they cost so much more money these days. Tim, did you get to see it? I don't know if you did. I think it's terrible.
I haven't caught the new one, but the last one that I did like is I like the one that looked like the old LA Aztecs jersey. That one is fantastic, but I haven't seen the new one. I'll have to take a look at it after we hop off the show today and probably end up agreeing with you because I'm not a fan of polo shirted soccer jerseys. So with that, let's hop over to LA Galaxy. And you mentioned it. We've talked about Jalen Neal. He is a 5-time humanitarian of the year for the Galaxy franchise, between the top club and then the lower division club, LA Galaxy 2. And you talked about it a minute ago. You talked about GAM. The Galaxy did not get a player for this. They got $450,000 in GAM for 2025 and another $200,000 in GAM for 2026 and a 25 international roster spot. So again, talking about alphabet soup, going through this, how do we put people into the pitch and onto the roster? These are types of things that we're really going to have to talk about, Philly, with the fans out there so that we all understand it.
Jalen Neal is going to Montreal. Club de Foot Montreal, as we've jokingly called them on the Defenders of the Bank podcast, the Foot Clan, a team that went 11-10-13 that, found themselves in a final series playoff scenario, which they ended up losing, I believe. Yeah, it was to Atlanta United. Mm-hmm. He gets to go there. He gets to freeze in Montreal, but Montreal's a beautiful city. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love Montreal. The fact that he's going there, I think it's a good idea for the Galaxy because, $650,000 in GAM. They get the payroll cap relief. This is the unfortunate scenario for winning the MLS Cup. You can't keep your roster because you get penalized. But this, for Jalen Neal, he gets to sign a 3-year contract with an option for 2028. And the Galaxy, most importantly, get to receive a sell-on percentage of the transfer fee if they sell Neal to another club. And with as talented as he is, that's very much a possibility.
Yeah, I did see that, and I thought that was a very interesting portion of that transaction, is that sell-on percentage if they were to sell him to another club later on. And it's also great for Jalen because now he gets a ton more minutes. The things that I was reading about Montreal is that they've already got him shoehorned into their starting lineup basically right out of the hop. So it's going to be great for Jalen, and it's good long-term for the Galaxy.
Absolutely. And that also, of course, comes off the heels of Gaston Brugman heading over to Nashville, which is another thing. So Galaxy starting to unload thus far. But Tom Boger did tweet the other day that the Galaxy are looking to finalize that rumor we were talking about, the signing of Danish center back Mathias Zanka Jorgensen. So that should be a thing that happens within the next couple of days. 34 years old from Anderlecht, originally summer from Brentford, was a regular with Anderlecht this year. That should be a big one.
Yeah, that'll be a big signing. So if that comes through, that will definitely shake up who still stays on that Galaxy roster.
Yep. All right. Now, time to pay some more bills. Cha-ching. Soccer in 60 is brought to you by National Core, one of the nation's largest not-for-profit affordable housing developers and proud sponsor of your MASL team, the Empire Strikers. At National Core, they believe that soccer has the power to transform lives just like they do, because soccer can as well. They believe in building strong communities on and off the field. To learn more about National Core and their mission, go to nationalcore.org. And Tim, speaking about the Empire Strikers, deja vu all over again, as Yogi Berra would say. Another wild one versus Tacoma.
Yeah, this one was amazing. They go down, they get up, they get tied, and they go up. I mean, this thing had everything of a drama on Channel 7 at 9:00 at night. The fact that the Strikers were able to pull this game out in a big 4-3 win, this was great, because this wasn't going to happen a year ago. They go down 1-0. And then behind the hat trick of Marco Fabian at the end of the game, Marco leads this team, but it was the quietest hat trick I've really truly ever seen somebody score, because the play that the Strikers had this time around was great. And this is against a Tacoma team that had actually gotten smoked just a couple of days earlier by the Chihuahua Savage, 21-8. They got absolutely destroyed, but rumor has it they saved a couple guys for the Empire game. But maybe that's true, maybe that's not. But I'm wondering if LA is the MASL is big time now, because since they're doing load management, right, Philly?
I mean, by a couple, you mean 7 key players did not feature in that game, and a couple players wouldn't feature for the game that we're talking about. Moises Gonzalez didn't play. Moises Gonzalez in that game against the Savage had one of the most gorgeous goals you'll ever see in the Major Arena Soccer League. In addition, Stefan Mijatovic playing overseas in that Kings Cup Challenge tournament. The U.S. just lost that to Morocco. So great game. The Strikers win. Fabian gets a hat trick, but even more important than that, Nick Pereira of the Tacoma Stars, his 226 career assists puts him in the number 1 spots, past Kansas City Comets legend Leo Gibson for number 1 on the score sheet. So that was amazing. With that, the Strikers managed to equalize their entire win total from last season. So great game for the Strikers. They've got a gauntlet, though, of games upcoming, Tim. A lot of games. Kansas City Comets over at Cable Dom Arena is going to be the first game that they play on Friday. And there's an LAFC tie to that, because the keeper, at least for the vast majority of this season for the Comets, Philip Ejimadu, was part of LAFC. He started so far 5 games for the Comets. He's 1-4, went to an overtime loss, a goals against average of 3.37. Awesome. And for me personally, in a selfish way, the very first professional athlete I ever had an interview with.
Oh, that's kind of a fun fact of the day. Yeah, the Comets do come in 4th place in the league, 4-0-2, and they're led by Ryan Marquez with 10 goals and also 7 helpers. So the guy's already got, they're 6 games in, and he's already got 17 points. This guy is in the running for that golden boot for sure. Zach Reggett is right behind him with 6 goals and 6 assists. So this is going to be a tough one against Kansas City on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the battle of the co-golden boot winners from last season, Marco Fabian and Zach Reggett. Now, there is a game that could possibly be at risk, because the Strikers are supposed to head in to Texas to take on the Sidekicks. But with all the craziness going on from the weather front in Dallas, we might have to keep a close eye on that, because I don't know if that game is going to be played. So keep your ears, eyes open for that. And then coming back to Toyota Arena, they take on the St. Louis Ambush, who will be coming off of a game from Corner Sport Arena against the defending champs. But what makes this matchup intriguing, not because it's on a Monday night MASL, I love that, but it's the return of one of the franchise's most successful players, in that of Frank Tayu, potentially his brother Uzi Tayu, and Mo Ndiaye.
Yeah, the game that they're kind of come in with on Monday night, go get your tickets at the Empire Strikers, strikerswithany.com. Get tickets to that game because it's going to be incredible to see all of these guys coming back to the Empire playing against the Strikers. And it's going to be super fun. So get out there. They had a big crowd on Sunday night. I'm expecting a much bigger crowd this coming Monday.
And here's to that. And with that being the case, let's transition on over to Angel City FC. And with that, we bring back the co-host of the Angel City Chicks podcast, the glorious and illustrious and sarcastic, dare I say, Nina Kiefer, with all the scoop on Angel City. Nina, welcome. Hope you're safe out in Ontario.
Doing okay out here, but it has definitely been windy. That wind hitting 75 miles an hour out here in Ontario. We prepped pretty well over here. Fortunately, no fires this way. It's all staying a little more west, but as you said, sadly for me, that's a lot of where I grew up. So definitely sending prayers out that way. Within that, though, let's have some positives. I know a sad fire connotation as well would be Ali Riley. Unfortunately, her neighborhood is burnt down. Talking about our Angel City captain and the person I was plugging on the last game to be the possible coach for the team. But, sad moments there. But let's talk some happy. We're bringing joy. You guys have done a good job. We're bringing the joy so far. So let's talk about a couple call-ups real quick. So milestone moment, Angelina Anderson earned her first senior team call-up. She's going to be going to the U.S. Women's National Team January camp. We're very excited for her. And of course, Alyssa Thompson also repping Angel City FC at the U.S. Women's National Team camp in Los Angeles in January. And, one of the things that I find interesting is alongside this U.S. Women's National Team camp, they're also going to be hosting a futures camp in Los Angeles.
Oh, they're selling commodities with Angel City? Cocoa beans and oil, pig bellies, orange juice.
Right?
Copper,
all the
platinum.
Things. It's so
In a
interesting.
BLT sandwich.
I hadn't seen this before, and it is definitely brand new. Emma Hayes is deciding to bring people in, and so Giselle Thompson was invited into the 2025 Futures Training Camp. It's going to be 24 up-and-coming U.S. Women's National Team prospects, selected, of course, by head coach Emma Hayes, and they're going to be held concurrently with the U.S. Women's National Team Training Camp. So I'm not sure if that means they're going to be training together or if they're going to be doing separate activities and maybe a couple joined, but it does sound like they're going to run concurrently. So Emma Hayes bringing about 50 people to LA.
Those are big numbers. I mean, you got 50 people coming in. That's going to be pretty amazing for Angel City to have those type of people coming out there, Nina.
Yeah, absolutely. And additional news coming out is the fact that Angel City has actually made, we'll call it a signing. I don't know how you boys feel about this.
Bring it.
All right. We have Angel City signing Laura Flynn as the club's new Chief Revenue Officer. So as the Chief Revenue Officer, Laura is going to be overseeing and executing sales strategies, including sponsorships, ticketing, events, and merchandise. And I'm really hoping also keeping the books. Because well, that's one.
Somebody has to. You can't. The biggest thing with Angel City is just as long as they don't hire the former CFO of a town in Orange County called Placentia that's gone bankrupt twice. The big thing here is to make sure that they are keeping the books and keeping the players paid properly and not any additional, player service contracts that may or may not have occurred over the past couple of years.
Yeah, don't need to be getting fined again. I think 4 fines in 3 years and being docked points, we're finally getting past all of that. So really glad to see Laura Flynn coming on. We do know that we've got some ties to her from Soccer in 60, so very exciting news for us there. Anytime we see someone that we're all personally and professionally connected to, it's really exciting to see them advance in the soccer world. So she's going to be bringing a lot to the table, I think. And like we said, Angel City desperately needs to be rebuilding. So exciting to see players getting call-ups and acknowledged. Exciting to see movement in the front office for them. There's a lot more to come, I'm sure. I'm sure Angel City's thoughts are also at Pepperdine, their former training facilities where they spent months and months of their first season. And now Pepperdine obviously threatened by those fires. So just, I hate to continue to bring it down with that, but lots of tie-ins here, especially for our teams. And as we continue to grow as a team, we're trying to figure out what's next. So bringing people into LA, bringing in all the U.S. women's national team players soon. Hopefully we're, rebuilt by then.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's one of those things. It's the rise of the Phoenix, right? You got to get back up. You drag yourself out no matter what happens. And Angel City, with the new people in the head office, after they justifiably had to clean some house, I think it's going to be great long term for Angel City with these new people in place that are not connected to the team from the very start, right? I think some of that has to happen. I think getting a coach in place also has to happen, whether or not any of the rumors that are on the internet, are true. They need a coach, and they need one quickly, because otherwise none of the players are going to want to come to Angel City, no matter who's running the club.
And the thing is, how do you start a season? How do you even look forward to a training camp? How do you even think to spark a conversation with your agent and a team if you have no idea who's going to be at the helm of your side? I think it is crazy that there is no coach in place. Somebody should have been announced, or at the very least rumored to be announced, towards the end of 2024. We start the new year off, and a week into it, still nobody at the helm of Angel City, and they expect somebody to come in with a completely new system and a whole new set of ideas for a group of players, for the most part, that have been together for a couple of years and played under one system. I think this is a very big risk. They need to start taking their minds out of the corporation of Disney and the potential Star Wars and Marvel superheroes nights and focus on the task at hand, putting a team together, and it starts with a coach. What are you doing, Angel City?
You're not wrong to be upset. I can only hope that they get that coach in place, because then after that, potentially we have, 50 people coming to Los Angeles to train, and 24 of them under the age of 24, essentially. So let's take a look there. Let's see who Emma Hayes is bringing here and take that opportunity to maybe show them around, obviously within all the confines of the NWSL rules, because we do not need any more centers. Laura Flynn does not have that in her cash flow projection.
Seriously. Yeah, and I agree with Philly, right? What are you doing, Angel City? You gotta be on it, because if you don't have somebody that's going to come in right away and really get these people on the front end of this season, you're looking at 6-8 weeks, and now you're talking a quarter of the season before you've got your team in line to be playing really quality soccer inside of your new coach's system. And that's way too late.
Bob Iger, your predecessor from many years ago, Walt Disney, would not start a cartoon, a silly symphony or whatever, without Mickey Mouse. You need to bring in Mickey Mouse before Pluto and Goofy and Donald and Daisy and Minnie and everybody else fall in a line. Make it happen. You already run a pretty big company. Make this team successful too, please.
I was waiting for you to start doing the voices. I'm sorry. That's just me.
Oh, boy. No, I can't. I was able to hit that maybe pre-puberty days.
And with that, let's turn our attention to this week's Strike Force. Looking back January 2nd through the 8th, first place goes to Marco Fabian, of course, for his amazing hat trick, 3 goals, and with that also 5 shots on goal from the midfielder. Brian Orozco in goal. Now, I'm going to give you guys a couple stats right here. First of all, 9.23 save percentage, 12 saves, but here's the good one. This is the one that gets me. 1 goal allowed in 42 minutes. I want to pause on that.
Sideways. You do not see that in indoor soccer. These are games, like we mentioned, the Tacoma game before they played the Strikers was a 29-goal affair. Most of the games that you're seeing last season, this season, are 10, 15 goal affairs. To give up 1 goal in over 40 minutes of play. Brian Roscoe, my hat's off to you if I was wearing one.
Look, Marco had an exceptional game, so no question that he would get first place. He tends to score hat tricks against Tacoma. Back to last season, the final 3 games of the year against the Stars, Marco, hat tricks. But third place, Berto. What I loved about Berto, and it kills me that I didn't recognize this on the broadcast. I didn't catch it quick enough because I was telling a story. He had that incredible pass to Marco Fabian that led to that like scissor kick goal. That was phenomenal. Without Berto, that does not happen. In addition, he shut down Nick Pereira for the vast majority of the game. Berto played some exceptional defense. So I definitely want to highlight that. And Nina, who we got as our super sub?
Our super sub, of course, Momo Guy. He had a fantastic game as well. 2 defenders getting called out along with our goalkeeper for this one. And I think that's evident in the scoreline, as you guys discussed, where it was a relatively low scoring match. So like you said, Robert Palmer, not only the assist, but 3 blocks. Then Momo Guy, our super sub here. Brian Orozco doing a tremendous job between the pipes. Just absolutely fantastic defensive game. This is a poster for defense wins championships.
For sure. And Momo even picked up an assist in that. Thanks, Gunnar. And to be able to get into this top 3 right now, it's a fight. And like you said, the defense is really, truly coming through this season like they haven't in a very long time, not since their championship run to the championship final season a couple of years ago. The defense is just amazing. It's great to see them, see Coach Obasi putting that in place and shutting down big giant stars from the other teams.
Absolutely loving it. You know, this is definitely our strike force, and we look forward to being able to talk about multiple games on our next pod and getting lots of data on our strike force.
Yeah, this has been fantastic. Thanks, Nina. Let's jump over to Orange County one last time because there is some news coming out of there. They posted on their website just this past couple of days. There is an open tryout for the Orange County Soccer Club. Now, the cool thing about this is every season for the last 13 years that Orange County in one form or another has put this together, at least one person has come out of this with an invite to spring training, to the soccer camp before the season. And on more than one occasion, somebody's made a full-time contract for the team. So if you think you can handle it, think you can play with the big boys out with Ethan Zubak and Bryce and everybody else, Thomas Among, get out there on the 19th. You got to sign up. You got to be 18 or over. So Philly, you and I can still go out and try and do it.
Holy Hong Kong Phooey, I'm getting my boots on. They're brand spanking new. Folks, again, we certainly appreciate you taking some time to hang out with us. Again, there's so much chaos going on in the world, particularly in our parts of Los Angeles. Our hearts and prayers, thoughts go out to you. Thank you for giving us the time, and God bless all of you. And with that being the case, make sure you subscribe to us, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, iCloud, everything. We are available on there. We are available in all your podcast platforms. And check out Soccer in 60. But more importantly, tell your family and your friends about us. I'm Philly. That's Tim. We'll see you next week. Good night. God bless.